I was questioning myself, like, what can be the possibility of a dialogue between religions? Okay, so my quest is basically that we have to look for in all the religions. I'm saying all the religions. So this is my basic concern. So it's twofold. Uh, as we understand, basically human life, we are talking about human life, and human life, the core of human life we identify to be religion, and the core of religion we identify to be spirituality, and we are stopping here. But I am furthering my quest, and I assume that at the core of religion, at the core of spirituality, what lies at the core of spirituality is basically creativity and imagination. Okay, that's what is missing in the present religions. So this is my basic point that I want to make here. So to start with, let me raise this question: what is the methodology that is to be adopted for a kind of interreligious dialogue? We obviously understand, and it has been established, that analytical approach will not lead us anywhere, because once you start analyzing the concepts and try to do justice, you will not be doing real justice to interreligious dialogue. The other approach that we have is critical approach. Critical approach also will not lead us anywhere, because it makes us a kind of judgmental, and it would lead to more danger than helpfulness in regard to developing an interreligious dialogue. The third one that we have, and which was adopted by many of our previous speakers, is comparative approach. But even within comparative approach, we have to closely understand what is it that we are talking about when we are doing comparative philosophy or comparative religion especially. Mere looking at commonalities and differences, this also has happened during these 2 days. That is also one of the ways of doing comparative religion and trying to get into a dialogue between religions. But that is only at the initial level, but we have to go further than that, right? So what is it that lies beyond mere talking about commonalities and differences? What lies beyond this is looking for mutual complementariness. Okay, what lies beyond this is mutual complementariness, and how do each of these religions contribute to each other, so that the human goal, which lies larger than these religious goals, gets fulfilled. So this is where this is the kind of comparative approach that we have to adopt with regard to comparative or interreligious dialogue. The context here is very important when we talk about comparative religions. The context is, we are not talking about religions in the ideal context. Okay, how what is the ideal human situation where an ideal religion can exist, or what is the coexistence, what kind of coexistence, best coexistence is possible between ideal religion and ideal human life. No, we are not dealing with that. We are raising this question in this 21st century, where we are really troubled, probably because of various reasons, whether they are religious reasons or political reasons or whatever it may be. We identify the present situation to be a crisis situation, and that's what makes us to look at a kind of interreligious dialogue. So this real situation is very important than ideal situation where we try to idealize things. Real situation now is, it is developing a kind of antagonism among religions, which is an accepted fact around us. And in this kind of and obviously prejudices are naturalized among us. Prejudices against each of these religions are naturalized among us. And how do we deal with this kind of a situation? This is where I believe we have to go beyond faith, beyond belief, and beyond reason as well, and probably towards spirituality in our comparative approach. And clearing away of this misunderstanding and misconceptions is the basic concern of comparative religion. Here I would raise the question, what do we mean by spirituality? No? What do we understand by spirituality? I don't want to go back to the classical or traditional answer of this, but how do we understand spirituality in the present context? you will find a tension between two things. Spirituality in the present context is either marketable commodity. Don't forget this, okay? This is a fact of our life. Spirituality in the present context is a marketable commodity or a weapon in the hands of fundamentalists, okay? So these are the two ends that we find when we are talking about spirituality, and there is no middle ground, okay? All ordinary beings like us are caught up in between in this tension between marketable commodity and fundamentalist weapon. So how do we place ourselves, and how do we provide this missing the real spiritualism? How do we find that? That is the quest that moves me forward into this endeavor. What is the reason for this religious crisis in the present world? We have identified that there is a crisis in the religious world, religious crisis in the globalized world. So what is the reason for this? The reason is we always, there is an increasing nurturing of increasing religious violence at one hand, and there is also decreasing religious tolerance on the other hand. So this is the tension, again, second tension under which human life of the present day is has to cope up with. The other tension that we come across is abstract universalism and cultural rootedness of human existence. So this is another tension that creates the tension between these two extremes that we see them as extremes, but actually they are not extremes for me. Quest for universal, abstract universalization and cultural rootedness of the human life. But actually, if you are looking at what is spiritualism according to a particular religion or particular human, for a particular human being, in fact, it is an abstract universal which is rooted in cultural, which is rooted in his own culture, and this is what one of the modern philosophers from a different domain altogether has mentioned as cultural universal. Okay. All these concepts that we have are cultural universals because they are rooted in their culture, but still they are abstract universals for them. So answer needs further introspection, leading to look at the history. If we are trying to really address the issue of crisis of religions, and this kind of furtherance, probing, leads me to look at the history to see what is missing and what is excessively stressed. Okay, probably in the development of each of these religions that we are talking about, whether it is Hinduism or Islam or Christianity or whatever it may be, in the development of these religions, each of these religions, probably there is something that is missing, which we have completely ignored, overlooked, and also there may be something which is excessively stressed. Okay, intentionally or unintentionally, we have excessively stressed few things. We have omitted or missed few gaps, and probably if we can look at those gaps, the missing links, they would help us more in developing a better dialogue with regard to religious discussion. So this is my basic point, and here my hypothesis is probably something that was pushed to silence would be helpful in resolving the crisis of the present situation. And my argument is that it is the creativity and imagination that is the missing link in the religions. Let me come back and ask the basic question, fundamental question. In general, if we address this question like, do imagination and creativity have any place in religion now or spirituality? The obvious answer, if we are getting an answer from a layman, the obvious answer is no. Religion has no space for creativity or imagination. This is the obvious answer that we get. You just probe further and ask them why, they would say religion is only a set of practices as well as repetition of whatever doctrines and practices, right? It is a set of practices, and also it is just the repetition of what is there, that's all. It's nothing more than that. This is a wrong conception of religion that we have developed as a closed one. But in fact, you stop for a minute and look at the history of religions. Each of these religions have developed with imagination and creativity. Okay, religious literature is endowed with a lot of creativity and imagination, and religious sculpture that we have come across in the history is endowed with imagination and creativity, and religious forms that we have, sculpture and art, paintings that you come across, all these are completely endowed with imagination and creativity, which are, see, you look at the history of art of any civilization, it takes you back to the religion. You look at the history of sculpture in any civilization, it will take you to the religion. So religion is the one which has started, which has developed basically by utilizing the services of art, literature, and sculpture. And now you look at it. Now you look at the practice of religion. Okay, this is where I am saying it is a closed one. Now the present religions that we are coming across, we are all practitioners of religions. Unfortunately or fortunately, this is the link that we are missing: creativity and imagination. Let me just say what do I mean by imagination and creativity. I will not take much time, just probably 5 more minutes, that's all. Imagination for me is a conscious representation of what is not immediately present to the senses. Okay, it is a conscious representation, but it is something that is not immediately available to the senses. Okay, that is imagination for me. And what is creativity? Creativity makes use of imagination to unleash the potential of existing ideas. There are already existing ideas. To make them free and completely flourish, creativity comes into picture in order to create new valuable ones. Okay, and in this context we should also understand what is innovation. If we are because this is how seriously we come across, like imagination, creativity, and then innovation. Innovation is taking existing and reliable systems and ideas and improving them further. Okay, that's where innovation lies. So these three, in fact, if you look at them, imagination, creativity, and innovation, focus of imagination is always something that may look like impossible, and focus of creativity is something that might be possible, but innovation is what is right in front of you and you modify it. Okay, this is the focus of each one of them. So now what is to be done? Dig into the history. What is it that we have to do? So now that we have identified lack of creativity to be the problem for us in understanding the present crisis, so what is it that we have to do is dig into the history to look at the spaces of imagination in each of these religions and nurture the ways of imagination so that religions open themselves beyond set of practices and beyond mere repetitions. Okay, so if we really want to go beyond this set of practices and mere repetitions, because religion is always beyond that, then what is it that we have to identify is the missing link in each of these religions, which is imagination and creativity. So unless we do that, unless we probe into that, unless we unleash that, probably if we do that, no, that would provide a better platform for a dialogue between religions. Unfortunately, non-spiritual domains are making use of imagination and creativity in a better way. I'll give you an example. Charlie Hebdo, French satirical magazine, has made use of imagination and creativity in a better way to create more antagonism against religions and more violence in the name of the religions. Okay? So what we are missing is something that is made use by non-religious groups in a better way, non-spiritual groups in a better way, but we have forgot our own major essence. No? So unless we go back and unless we try to nurture imagination and spirituality, imagination and creativity in our religions, we would be mere talking, which will not be useful to us. So we have to go back to art, we have to go back to literature, we have to go back to sculpture to develop, to open the religions beyond mere practices and repetitions. Thank you so much.
Good.
Thank
Very
you.
Good. Very good.